Hello and welcome to Walk the Talk Show with yours truly, Waylon Lewis, coming to you live from Boulder, Colorado. And I'm honored to be here with Jan Burton, Sam Austin. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
Yeah, and you're the co-founders of Rhino Cubed. So we begin these conversations with a bow of mutual respect and a reminder of our mission, which is to be a benefit to this crazy, wonderful world. So if you're viewing this, you can take a good posture and relax, kind of touch in with your breath. Don't worry, it won't get too weird. Just touch in with your breath, which is hopefully very normal to you, and offer a bow of respect. And then this being Boulder, we also begin with a couple seconds of meditation, which again isn't meant to be some hipster, hippie thing. It's really just touching in with your basic humanity, which can help you in business, in connecting with our environment, relationships, whatever you like. So basically just ground your posture into the earth, the solidity and nurturing of the earth. And then connect your head with the notion of the heavens. That's the realm entrepreneurs love. Vision, mission. Connect the two in your heart, which is the realm of friendship or society, which we'll be talking about. And then find your breath in and out. Often we can go a whole day without even remembering that we're breathing. Your eyes can be open in this particular meditation, which comes from the Buddhist tradition. But it's non-religious. You can do it whatever your faith or lack of faith. Then if you find yourself distracted, thinking about lunch or dinner or an argument, good or bad, happy or sad, any thought, you can just notice that and return to your breath. Okay, thank you. How was that?
Great.
We started doing that when we had an entrepreneur on the show, and it was a great conversation, but I asked how it was when it was done, and she said, I wasn't really present for the entire thing until the last 10 minutes. I was like, maybe people need a moment. So tell us, what is Rhino Cubed?
The company or the product?
You tell me.
Okay. Rhino Cubed is a company that Sam and I started just in January of this year.
Okay, so what is that, like 6 months?
Yeah, 6 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
We'd been talking about it a couple of months before, but he and I are on the kind of the same philosophy that when you get an idea, don't think it to death, go with it.
Nice.
And try it out.
That's brave.
So we had actually bought a shipping container. So the idea of the company is to make tiny structures that combine art with sustainability.
And so far they're all shipping containers. Is that always going to be what you do, or is that just an aspect of what Rhino Cubed is about?
Well, I'd say at this point that's the priority. We haven't thought about anything else, but and we're very committed to shipping containers as the perfect building block.
Right.
But
literally.
Who knows where a company's going to go?
You can literally, there's great, like if people Google shipping containers living or whatever, you can see people have created these huge structures with a bunch of them. I'm a huge fan. Why are shipping containers fun to live in? I mean, they're obviously, kind of tough looking and not super friendly at first glance.
Why are they fun to live in? I think they're fun to live in. There's a lot to be said about the scale of them. Mm-hmm. I suppose an argument could be made that they're a little narrow. Mm-hmm. But we've tried to handle some of that in design. They're also very...
You mean like by having it open up and stuff?
Yeah, no, kind of by the way that we've... I think of the design of the shipping containers as using space kind of like cutting Tootsie Roll lengthwise, because they're longer than you necessarily would need and not as wide. So compartmentalizing them a little bit. Mm-hmm. People have said when they come into the one that we built, it's bigger than they thought, mm-hmm. Kind of surprisingly. Mm-hmm. So
for people who don't know, these are these like kind of urban, super I don't know what you call them, urban-looking like metal containers that are shipped all over the world on boats and stacked up in harbors. People probably know them well from The Wire, but we'll skip over that reference. I'm glad you didn't get that one.
The Wire.
The Wire. It was a TV show.
Oh.
Some bad stuff. Some bad stuff happened in shipping containers. We'll skip over. But so they're like indestructible. They're piled like a million on top of each other.
Yes.
And then how many are sort of retired every year and just kind of available for use?
I think we've heard millions.
Millions.
So
Yeah,
it's a
so
super
they're-
eco thing to
Exactly.
use these. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we've chosen to use what we call a high cube. It's 9.5 or 9.5 or 9'6". So they're much higher.
Oh,
They
that's
feel
nice.
roomier.
Yeah.
So there
I'm 8
aren't-
feet tall, so I appreciate having that kind of height.
Me too.
Yeah.
So
That's nice.
yeah.
You know, the United States is probably the recipient of more shipping containers than other countries because they come in with goods from places like China and Germany.
Because we buy so much crap.
We buy stuff, and then we don't make that much stuff. So they
Right.
come in. It's cheaper to make a shipping container in a place like China and ship it full of stuff here
Right.
than it is to ship it back
Right.
empty.
So we're like
So they're
the
accumulating.
dumping ground or the landing ground
Yes,
for
very
sure.
much.
Right.
So you buy these things, and then what happens? What do you guys do with them?
Well, they show up at a shipping yard, and we buy them either in a 20-foot that's it's a shipping container as itself, or sometimes we have them cut from 40 feet down to another length.
Uh-huh.
So right now we have two 24-footers on our lot and a 20-footer. So those are two a little bit different things. We wanted one a little bit longer for stuff that we wanted, but
Cool.
then we buy it and we start building what we call the decanter, which is a shipping container with interior walls and artistic metal work done on it.
The neat thing about a shipping container is when you look at the tiny home movement, and for example, the movie,
Mhm.
they spent 8 months building the outside of it. And with a shipping container, it's there.
Right.
And it's very robust, it's weatherproof, it's rodent-proof. So it's a perfect building block to create something that can be very interesting, but also very, I think Sam mentioned that it's an heirloom product that can last for a couple hundred years.
You do obviously have to cut windows and stuff into
Yes.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. But when it shows up, you're working inside.
Right.
From the day it shows up.
Right.
And it shows up watertight, windproof. It's a completely resilient structure made to resist insects and rodents on almost every continent
Right.
and travel in heavy storms without any effect to the contents. So you've got quite a nice little
Yeah.
envelope
It's pretty
to start
tough.
with.
Yeah.
The least tough thing is right when we cut, window in it.
So do you
The first
put
hole.
roofs on it or anything, or do you just kind of put windows in it, and what do you do to it?
Well, we do put a roof on it. It doesn't. The roof is designed to collect water and to protect from the sun. It doesn't really need to shed water because it's already waterproof.
Right.
So we have a waterproof roof on top of a waterproof structure. This
So
is
you
another
collect,
thing.
yeah. So maybe go through all I have a long list here of all the eco things, the eco aspects, how you outfit these, in terms of the water collection and.
Well, these units can be either off the grid completely or on the grid. The first one we built was completely off the grid, so that you could stick it up on a mountain property or next to a river, and you could operate it with. He designed it with a solar generator. The solar generator runs a refrigerator, and it could run another electrical device. It's got water storage, water capture, and the ability to get rid of the water. So you could use
So
it.
it cleans the water that you capture.
It doesn't really clean it yet. You have to. If you're let's say you're pumping water out of a stream, and we have a 55-gallon water tank inside the unit, or let's say you're filtering pine needles out of the water and bringing it inside. That water then is fine for washing dishes, but then you'd want to filter it again inside the unit before you drink it.
Cool.
Is the truth of the matter. So there's a number of ways of doing that.
Yeah.
And by the way, I love this little solar generator because you can really plug things into it. We ran the table saw off of it for a little while. It's got 3-prong plugs, and then anything that you might want to charge, like your cell phone or whatever.
Right.
And it runs the fridge. I think you said that. I get kind of hyped up. It's called the Yeti.
Sounds cool.
It is cool.
Yeah. Cool. And then what else? What does it look like when you're done with it, and what are the other eco aspects?
Well, let's start with the design, because that was a very important value for us. Because design is critical to both of us. We believe very much that living small doesn't mean living in something ugly. That it needs to have a really cool design. And so his whole background in design was very, very important in figuring out the architectural elements of the windows and the doors and the things that he could talk more about.
So your background was as an architect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am an architect.
Is. Yeah.
And you mentioned they're tough little structures. And so design-wise, we didn't start out with necessarily preconceived notion of what the tough little structure might be. But we chose to name the company Rhino Cubed. We think rhinos are tough little structures. We love... We were both big animal lovers, and we had a variety of things I won't talk about the rhino right now, but we tried to translate that into architecture. And so, for example, when we cut a hole in the container, the piece that we use to put the windows in is 1/4-inch plate steel, completely welded all the way around with a waterproof weld. So it has this robust feature. Another example of that is our front door. On the unit that we built, which is 350 pounds and rotates on ball bearings about the size of a grapefruit. It's a really cool artistic element that is designed to be both robust and to have what I would consider artistic features of kind of our mission, right? The doors, we let the door rust. It can rust for a couple hundred years, probably without rusting through. Parts of it are designed to rust, and some parts are designed to not rust. So it's just this cool, robust feature that goes with the idea of a shipping container. We have an architectural feature called the Rhino Horn, which really its only purpose is to hold a flag.
Nice.
Or a weather station.
Right.
It's really a statement about art and the importance of that. So.
Yeah, and then what does the actual, the living quarters look like inside? Is that the part you're more involved in, or?
Yeah,
well,
Jan had a lot of involvement with that.
I thought a kitchen was important.
Yeah, I've heard that kitchens are important.
Yeah, especially to a woman.
Right.
I think maybe in the look and feel of that kitchen is more important to a woman than many men. I mean, one use of this would be sticking it out, as a hunting village or a little hunting lodge or something. But we were trying to design something that people could kind of get their brain around in terms of very small living. This particular one has got a very nice kitchen. It's got a little living area, and it's got this platform bed with some storage and some living area underneath.
This is in the 20-foot?
It's only in 20 feet.
Yeah.
And then the back end of it opens up, and there's a little bit of a man cave back there for tools and storage, but it's very artistic in nature.
Or a woman cave.
Yeah, it could be a woman cave, exactly.
Yeah. I'm bad with tools and with the kitchen, so.
I am too. I have to say, I think the Rhino Cube exhibits parts of our personalities, and the outside is got this monster truck feeling, and the inside kind of had a monster truck feeling in the beginning. There was, I thought we would just put in these metal cabinets from Home Depot. That was the sort of dudeness, and
right.
Thankfully,
you could have
Jan
the
took a larger role.
You could have the dudeness edition for guys who want to go off and hunt, or whatever.
Absolutely.
And you could have the.
This model, if you went off to hunt, would have the ability to, bake cookies, hang out, and
so let's broaden the discussion a little bit because it's so interesting. So these are mobile homes, like trailers or tiny house movement, which is huge right now. We've talked about the tiny house movement. Our friends Christopher and Moret with the Tiny documentary that's on Netflix. It's great.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And you can literally move these. So you're no longer like this house I love, but if I want to move to Portland next year or some other hipster-approved town, I can't take my house with me.
Right.
But if I have a trailer or a tiny house or whatever, or a Rhino Cubed, I can ship it out, right?
You could.
Yeah, I wouldn't call this container home a mobile home.
But it is mobile and it is a home, right?
You can easily
Yeah.
put it on flatbed. It's amazing how truckers are so used to taking these containers anywhere.
Right.
So you easily lift it up, put it on a flatbed.
Yeah.
In fact, the one we just got was delivered with a Ram 2500. It wasn't even a semi.
Wow.
So they can be moved very easily. Trucking companies are very, very used to accommodating this.
Which is no surprise because it's a shipping container.
Right. You can ship it. So
You can
that's
ship
so
it.
interesting.
Put it on
That why would you not call it a mobile home? That's very interesting. We kind of had this discussion before.
One reason is you can move it, but you wouldn't want to move it often. You would move it. Maybe you would live if you were living somewhere for. It's going to cost you $1,000 at least probably to move it.
You wouldn't, like as you just did, take it around to national parks all over the
Right.
No,
US.
you wouldn't do that.
You wouldn't visit all the national parks, but
So
you
you
could move it
just
to
so
Portland.
people know, you just went around for 4 months or something in Airstream, and that was part of the sort of genesis of this whole idea, right?
Well, it was certainly confirming. I was testing out products, and it's confirming that I could live in something that's 16 feet with no problem.
For 4 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could live in something that was like how many square feet?
180 or.
Yeah, I could do that for like a week or two, no problem.
Yeah.
Who knows? You might get used to it. You might like it.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing. I think people do kind of
Who
get
knows?
used to it. You know,
Yeah.
it's a totally different way of living.
Mhm.
I
I would just buy like 20 of them for all my stuff, and then I would live in one of them.
most important thing for most guys is a garage.
Yeah.
So this is something we've learned in research.
I don't know what's most important for me. I like a big bed,
There you go.
so I have room, being 9 feet tall. Okay, so but you can put it on a thing and you can move it over to Portland or move it to your friend's backyard or whatever. I mean, I'm sure there's zoning stuff.
Yeah.
But also, how is this different from a trailer park or a trailer? I love what you were saying before, that, trailers, there's this sort of notion that people ended up there, even if it's not true. The trailer community is amazing.
Yeah.
Often.
Yeah. I think the trailer park. There's a lot of great things to be said about the trailer park, and as I mentioned to you before, I'd like to be known for redeveloping the trailer park notion. But these are
for reinventing the notion, the kind
Yeah.
of prejudice against trailer parks.
Yeah, sure. I think one of the main differences, or one of the important things, and this is something that's gone along in my career for a while, is the idea that you chose to be there. It's a personal choice. This shipping container gives you. It's obvious if you have this container that you wanted it.
Right. It's such
you
an
don't just end up with it.
Right. It's such an alternative thing. There's no way.
We haven't scrimped on funky.
Mhm.
It's funky, and it's in a cool way.
Mhm.
And so I don't think anybody coming to the shipping container would feel any concern for you. They would say you might. They know that you did this to yourself.
Mhm.
And I think that's good.
So one of our philosophies is that the outdoors is great. It's healing. It's something that we ought to all get back to more. And that's if you live in a tiny or in a smaller structure, then you're more than likely going to be spending more time outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the ways we've talked about recreating the mobile home park is it's much more environmentally appealing. So we are actually looking in southern Colorado of developing a rhino camp.
Cool.
Where they would be much more dispersed. A lot more of the trees and environment would be kept instead of a flat piece of cement with units right next to one another. That they would be dispersed with maybe a campfire area and a little tiki hut and some things like that.
Right.
So that people of like mind could live in that kind of environment, or come in to visit. Or
why wouldn't you do it in Boulder? That'd be awesome.
I guess
It'd be cool.
Yeah. Land price.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah. The idea of a shipping container and a $500,000 lot they're not incompatible, but it's a tough sell.
Yeah, I would just think you could fit a whole lot of them in and still have lots of room,
Yeah.
Like we have lots of great.
Sure.
So I have lots of friends who live in trailers here in Boulder, and it's actually funny to me that like people think my having a house is cool and them having a trailer isn't, because if you look at it rationally, like you would feel sorry for me living here and having this mortgage, and you'd be happy for them paying almost nothing to live in a gorgeous city and a gorgeous community, and they're all gardening and outside all the time. It's kind of awesome.
And there's a lot of community. Yeah, trailer homes, there's a lot of community.
Yeah. No choice, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of the new urban idea. They're all running into each other all the time. So what, you have all this like criteria. Maybe we should go into that. Like, what do you call it? This criteria thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Was it?
It's like 6 things that
personal values in our mission statement, or
all right, I'll read my notes. Okay.
Yeah, remind us.
Yeah. Read us back.
So the test, as you call it, does it promote ecology? Does it promote individuality? Does it embrace nature? Does it encourage conversation? Clearly, at least one of them. Is it kick-ass design? Is it inspiring? Will it encourage alternative choices? Will your friends want to play banjo on your porch? That's key. That's number 8. Yeah.
Live music is really important to both of us.
Yeah. Cool. Right.
Well, these were kind of philosophies that we had as we started our business and as we developed products that we wanted to meet those goals. So we're not trying to really drive our values onto anyone else, but everyone has got individuality. It's and that's what we are trying to encourage with our products and with our website and everything. I just heard from someone yesterday in Tennessee who said what it made her, when she looked at the product that we've got on the website, it made her think about making a quilt or doing a painting. And if they bought one, they would buy one as a do-it-yourself. So the way we've structured this is a base unit we would include things like the windows and window bucks, things that are very
the Rhino Horn.
Exactly, things that not everyone.
The Rhino Horn goes on everything.
Yeah.
Right. So we would do things that not everyone can do because not everyone has access to a metal fabricator.
Right.
But people can easily lay their own floor, lay their own insulation, and if that's what they want to do, go for it. And then we would support them in that and teach them how to do it.
That's cool.
And that's where the individuality comes from.
And then you have units that are like 19,000 or 60,000 or whatever, so people can buy units that. What's the difference? Like with 60K, what am I getting? I'm getting a super finished home.
Yeah, completely finished.
Yeah.
With kitchen, with bathroom, with everything's built in. And then we've got other people who have different kinds of uses. The first one that we sold is actually a recording studio for musicians to put in Rangeley, Colorado, with this big tank that's used for recording music. So people have all kinds of ideas that we never even conceived of.
Sure.
And that's what we want to encourage is creative uses for this kind of structure.
I mean, even in the most basic parts of the design, enabling people to do their thing.
Yeah.
They're not buying. We are providing something for them to buy, but they're buying we're trying to give them the ability to enable them to do other things with the cube that we haven't envisioned yet.
Right.
An example.
They're not buying a fixed product. They're buying something that can reflect their life.
They can, yeah. And in fact, for example, one of the design features that we have is the container comes with no holes in the outside or anything. It's completely sealed.
Right.
And we've invented is not really the right word, but we have supplied the system for bolting things to the outside. Those things that you would bolt to the outside have not been defined, only that there's a system for doing it. And then we'll provide certain parts. For example, one of the parts that we've made is a receiver hitch for the back of a pickup that you can bolt to the side. Now, the beauty of that is then you can buy anything from Yakima and stick it right on the side of your container. Bike rack, kayak rack, or anything that would be a tailgating product, let's say from Bass Pro Shop. An outdoor kitchen, cooler, or I'm imagining somebody making one of these things into like wicker, this big wicker bird's nest, covered with, stuff.
Wicker on the outside?
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, you can literally do anything. You can bolt on a piece of wood and then start nailing stuff to it. We painted our first unit, Jan and I, with about 5 gallons of paint and turned it into our version of a little mini Jackson Pollock. Okay, but we're not suggesting that necessarily people only want Jackson Pollock. We're saying we have this tool we call the nut cruncher, and if you put this, well, you'll eventually see it, but you put this nut in the side of the thing.
I don't know if I want to see this.
Yeah, it's quite the little tool. you put the bolt, and then there's a bolt that goes in, and it's in a pattern that's predictable. So it's separated by a certain amount of inches. You can easily make anything with that pattern, stick it on the side, and bolt it securely, like a ladder. The sky's the limit.
So a couple more of the eco things. This was only on is this a model you can buy where it's composting toilet and all that stuff, all that eco stuff that I go crazy
all of
about?
All of that is available on any model, basically. But if someone wants a complete finished version, then they could have a composting toilet. They could be on the grid or off the grid. They make those choices. But they could have
the gray water disposal.
Exactly.
So cool.
I think what we'd like to do is, get people in, and then if they're wanting to go that route, we will offer a certain amount of consulting. It's just part of our mantra, right? And saying, oh, do you have electricity available? Are you going to? So if you did, well, then maybe you'd be partially on grid. And then we would help you work through those decisions, whether or not you would want a composting toilet or not.
So one of the major criticisms of tiny homes is that they're cute, but they're not practical. People want to make documentaries about them, but they don't want to necessarily live in them long term. So is there that is this a great second home or a cabin? Could you have a family in it? I mean, do either of you live in it? I'm guessing no.
Mm-hmm.
So what role do you see this playing in people's lives?
First of all, let me address the answer. The answer currently is no, we don't live in it, but we're moving that direction.
You are? Wow.
Well, we're getting I want to, and
Because you have a family or something?
Yeah, I have 2 kids. And
so could 4 of you or however many live it? No.
I don't think so.
Unless you combined a couple.
Yeah, I don't think 4 people could live in the 20-foot unit that we have.
But if you told each of your kids they're going to get their own trailer and it'll all be this modular thing.
My kid already wants one.
Yeah.
I mean, for a kid, it's a no-brainer.
Right.
It's just it's bigger than a dorm room. It's got its own kitchen.
Yeah.
So they're perfectly.
It's impervious to nuclear attack.
Yeah. And they're not predisposed to this notion of that we've been in more and more square footage. Their brain is not there yet.
So what are you talking about there that for people who don't know? Over the last 50 years, what's happened in the U.S. in terms of square footage?
Well, in 1950, I think average square foot was 983.
For a home, for a family.
For a home, for a family.
Yeah,
and in the census 2013, it was 2,600 square feet.
Right.
So we've ballooned up, and I don't think our happiness factor is necessarily ballooned with that.
Right.
So
well, it definitely hasn't. They've done studies, yeah.
Yeah, so if we've just chased this bigger is better and keeping up with the Jones kind of thing, and the mortgages are very high now.
Yeah.
And
the quality of the building is generally less.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and when we created this, we didn't necessarily say this would be the primary home for someone. The uses we thought about for a 20-footer was a secondary home.
Right.
A cabin.
So if I buy some land up there where I want to go cross-country skiing or something, I put a Rhino Cubed up there and I'm...
Exactly.
Or you're loving it.
I bolt my stuff to the side and...
Yeah.
And we've also thought about it as a backyard kind of...
Mother-in-law apartment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or an artist workshop,
right,
or a music workshop, or something like that.
How do they breathe in terms of airflow and stuff?
Really well.
They're tight. The breathing of the structure is controlled. I mean, we have windows that open up,
right,
and but when it's closed up, it's quite tight.
But if you wanted to do yoga or something in one, you could.
Just open up the windows.
You just open the windows.
There's great cross ventilation. You can open up the cargo doors, and so even on the hottest day in Boulder, it feels very comfortable.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's amazing.
It's kind of surprising.
It is.
I think you'd get hot. I guess because it's so narrow and it flows, and if you open stuff up, it's
surprisingly cool. It's amazing, really. One of the things you said reminded me of something really interesting I read online, which was that this grandmother built in her backyard out of a chicken shed a tiny home.
Mm.
Then she moved into the chicken shed and gave her kids her home so that they could raise their family in it, and she stayed there and was part of the whole scene.
Wow.
That was a new take. I mean, this is a grandma that has vision.
Right.
And so I could easily see this idea of a mother-in-law suite or your grandma suite,
right,
where we're moving. I just love that. I love everything about that. The strength of that family unit and how that works, and I would love to see a Rhino Cube being used that way.
Yeah.
And as for the for like the mountain cabin, you said, one of the great things, like this one that we're doing as a recording studio, it's made with shutters that shut in front of the windows, so you literally have very little to shut down. You just shut the thing down.
Right.
You put these, locks on the outside that are, like you'd lock your bike, and you leave. You're done. It's just.
And another design point for him was to create something that had very few moving parts, so that you're not always fixing something. And that's what people find when they have a bigger house with a lot of moving parts, is they're fixing this appliance or that appliance. Or,
Yeah, you went out to go camping, and now you're working on some project. We only, right in the Rhino Cube that we built, we only have one wire, and it goes from the refrigerator to essentially this very nice car battery that charges up the generator. That's the only wire in the unit, and then the lights are LED lights that run off of AA batteries that you charge on the solar thing, and they're magnetic, so you can pop them off and move them around on the ceiling.
So cool.
Totally different concept.
Yeah.
But it's not as outrageous as you might think.
And then if you buy the simplest version, like I want to DIY mine, but I want your expertise and some of that stuff, how much was that one?
It depends on how long of a unit you get and that kind of thing, but let's say $20,000 or so.
Okay, so it'd be interesting, like you can pile them on top of each other. It'd be interesting if people like combine a couple of them.
Yeah, we are trying to, truthfully, we're trying to stay away from that a little bit because that starts to drift back into what I've been doing for 20 years, which is custom houses, and then you move into this larger thing. But I think adding one.
I'm just thinking about families and stuff. Instead of it just being a second home or a cute little thing you Instagram, that people actually like live in it.
Well, once you add one other, first of all, if you buy the initial container, it's easy to grow.
Right.
And if you add one other container, like let's say you buy a 20-footer and you add a 40-footer, it's easy to grow to a specified size because you literally make the house larger by pushing it farther away from the container.
Right.
So it's a sliding scale, and then you put a roof over the whole space. So you can sort of, with two containers, easily determine your square footage. So
how wide are they again?
They're 8 feet wide.
8 feet wide always, right?
Yes.
And then they're up to 20 feet wide or something like that?
Up to 40 feet long.
40 feet, wow.
There's the standards are 20 feet long and 40 feet long. Both are 8, and then 8 or 9.5 tall.
I'm just thinking of like putting one in the backyard. It's so interesting.
They fit most places in Boulder. I've already spent
Yeah.
time figuring that out.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Sam and Jan of Rhino Cubed. As always, you can find this video as well as our conversation with Christopher and Moret about the tiny houses and others on youtube.com/Waylon H. Lewis and SoundCloud. And for more info on Rhino Cubed, is it rhinocubed.com?
Yes.
And there will be tons more info, your videos and such in our blog. So thank you so much.
Thank
it's a
you.
real honor. Yeah,
Appreciate
it's a
it.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's fun.